what's the big deal if you can inspire millions of people around the world and not be able to inspire the very people in your own home?
The John Kim Show. The John Kim Show. You better get ready for the John Kim Show. The John Kim Show. The John Kim Show. You better get ready for the John Kim Show.
Okay, and welcome to today's episode of the John Kim Show. I'm very excited to welcome my friend and mentor, Dave Gibbons. It's really hard to encapsulate you, Dave, in a couple sentences. I call you the international man of mystery, right, for that reason. But, Dave, he writes books, he does a lot of public speaking, starts movements and communities. And if I had to boil it down, I'd say one thing, kind of maybe the superpower that you have is you're really, really fantastic at developing leaders, right? And in that capacity, Dave has found himself in the highest halls of influence across multiple domains, advised some of the most influential people in Hollywood and Silicon Valley and Wall Street. His clients have included Grammy Award-winning musicians, New York Times best-selling authors. He was the last person to interview Kobe Bryant before he passed away. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then there's little old me. I've had the privilege of working closely with Dave through the years. And I feel very much sort of imposter syndrome when I look at the company that I'm keeping there. But more importantly, I have experienced incredible transformation through your leadership and your tutelage. So thank you, Dave, for being there for me in general and for coming here today on the show. I thought we could start maybe with this whole thing with Kobe, right? And sort of leadership development. Kobe's obviously a very good basketball player, right? But was there anything about him that sort of was characteristic in terms of him being a good leader beyond that?
Yeah, absolutely. At first, to be honest, I had really little respect for him in regard to how he handled some of his early interactions, like with Shaq and the LA
As in
Lakers.
like less respect for him, right?
Yeah,
sure. Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Maybe you can go into that a little bit.
Yeah, we could have won more championships, man. That's with Shaq, but it seemed like they didn't get along, and it seemed Kobe was sometimes too cocky.
Yeah, a little bit of ego.
Yeah. So, but I saw a very different side when we had our lengthy conversation. It was a private meeting where we haven't made public the video yet.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Are you going to at some point?
If his wife allows us to.
Okay,
so
wow.
We need to ask her.
I see, wow.
But we had said that this was going to be offline, but I guess they didn't mind us sharing the content of it, but they didn't want the video out yet.
I see, okay.
But what I noticed about him was very vastly different than the perception I got from the media.
Fascinating.
He had shifted, I think. I think there was a true evolution of who he became as a leader.
Right.
But we usually see him as a lead in the NBA or with the Lakers, an idol amongst many of even today's NBA players.
Yeah.
But he was a leader at home in a very positive way, not like a demagogue. But
home meaning LA or home meaning his home, like his house home?
His house home with his kids.
Wow, okay.
Like, I didn't realize, he has such a profound, deep love and prioritization of his own family.
Wow.
In fact, I remember him saying, what's the big deal if you can inspire millions of people around the world and not be able to inspire the very people in your own home?
Yeah. So true. Yeah.
And then he literally, he had this inner contract, he called it. Literally, he said this, because I have an inner contract with myself that, he wakes up like at 5 a.m. every day to work out. He says it's not even an option for him.
Wow.
He just does it. It's a discipline.
Just got to do it.
So in the same way, he said he had that same attitude regarding his children. He said he remembers coming home from a game, fourth quarter, they measured his temperature, I guess. It was 102 degrees. So he had a fever.
Wow.
He came home after the game. He's exhausted. But he says his girls ran up to him and said, let's play jungle gym. He said, I didn't want to do it, but I had to do it. He goes, as a parent, you're wondering about your time. He goes, well, just wake up earlier.
Yeah. It's not negotiable.
It's non-negotiable.
Just got to do it.
So he said, he lived by inner contracts and then these non-negotiables.
Yeah.
And so I saw him not only like as a great leader on the court that he became, he learned to, in fact, he said with his team that he wished he would have listened more to his teammates. But I not only saw that side of him, but I saw, wow, this guy really loved his kids.
Yeah. And is that something that you see in leaders? It's not just that they're have a public persona that's glamorous, but that they're sort of a very strong foundation in the home?
Not usually.
Really interesting. Okay.
To be honest. I think they maybe aspire to that, but there's so much in terms of, I recently had a conversation this week about what their perspective of greatness is. And like when you're from elementary school, you saw someone who had more social, like and they're like able to wow and woo the crowd. And he saw himself like as secondary to that, even though he was a leader. He said that was like his thing, is like, can I become that? So I think there's this image of greatness that people have, whether it's like that elementary school perspective or like in business, the arts. And so I think everybody aspires to that. But I think there's so much energy given to that they don't realize that they just have no energy to really care for some of the most important things in their life.
Maybe just get into your story. Like, tell us a bit about yourself, how you got to where you are, and the things that you've done that brought you here.
Well, a lot of it's not by discipline; it's by pain.
Right.
It's a response to pain. Unfortunately, I wish I could say there are like these great choices I made to bring me to where I am, but it was just navigating all the crap that comes your way. And then making good choices as best you can from that. And I think just, my life was just, I think, a very ordinary one, but with extraordinary parents who worked very hard. My mom from Korea, my dad from Michigan. And they came together and had me, and we had that American dream going on. But it was when my parents divorced after my dad had an affair that just threw my whole world upside down.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of the pain.
It was beginning. Yeah. It was just like, that just brought me into reality, into how hard the world can be. And then I think about 4 years after the divorce, I was a sophomore in college. My mom was tragically killed in a hit and run accident by a drunk driver, and she was my best friend. And so that took me to another really dark place. And so I think in that darkness, I had to discover who I am. And then maybe what really mattered to me. Those questions were addressed at an early age.
So what did matter to you? What did sort of the journey reveal?
I think it revealed, one, that a lot of the things that people strive for, it's like a golden cage. It wasn't really something that satisfied, but it could actually be the thing that imprisons you. And so I think that reality I saw from my own family and from those that were around us of means or of status. And then I think secondarily, it drove me to hunger after something more. There's this unique, in the wisdom literature of the scriptures that I read, it says that eternity has been written in our hearts. And so this longing for something more transcendent. And I think that's what was revealed to me, is that there's this longing I didn't know about. And the way it's been described by maybe like the framework of Christianity that I grew up in wasn't fully addressing it at the time. And so, but I identified a real hunger, and I want to pursue after that.
Right. So you're familiar with Christianity from a religious perspective, but not necessarily, it wasn't feeding that transcendent hunger that sort of started to come into your heart. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, because there's this shocking realities that were happening, like with death.
Right.
And then, why would God permit like this type of suffering? Like I saw with my mom and with others. And then, at that time, as it is today, racism, systemic racism and prejudice was evident, because I had to experience like the school, the Christian university, which was the biggest at the time in America. They had called me into the dean of men's office and said, "Hey, it's been reported you've been dating Caucasian."
Right.
I go, "Yeah,
dating Caucasian,
because
that's such a crime." Okay.
Crime.
Right.
They said, "Well, you can't do that anymore."
Right.
And I said, "Why not?" They said, "Well, it's biblical." And
wow.
So that's when I realized they had weaponized the scriptures to be tailored to kind of their own prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, wow, people have been probably doing this throughout all of history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think so. So where did that lead you after school? Like what happened? And
Yeah, well, there was a lot of like more questioning. It started putting, because when you're hungry and you have all these people you respect and honor when you're young, you're just kind of soaking it in,
yeah.
and maybe without any discernment. I think it forced me to be much more curious and not just adopt things that people said, but not be mean about it,
Mm-hmm.
but question it
Question it. Mm-hmm.
and then study it. So that's why I went to theological graduate school, because I want to dig into the original languages and understand philosophy and the different religious perspectives.
Yeah.
And then that took me on journeys then to different parts of the world, whether it's explore Buddhism or the Islam aspect of religion. And I was hungering, trying to figure out, like, with what I grew up in, is it really sound, or was it just something I did because it was near?
And so what was your conclusion? And you did actually end up coming back and starting a church, and maybe a little bit different kind of church than people who didn't question, right? But tell us a little bit about that sort of journey. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the conclusion at that time in my life was, I felt this hunger to help people like my mom. When at the end of it all, I said, because I saw how what I was studying from the scriptures that I was familiar with was the main mandate was to love God and love someone that's not like you.
Yeah.
And that you display the love of God. And I saw my mom, the embodiment of that, where she was the woman, the Asian woman. And women and children are usually ones most abused in our world. And then I saw how they, as an immigrant woman, it's so difficult to rise here in America.
Yeah.
And then if you get divorced, you're even further isolated in like a religious community.
Absolutely. Stigmatized and so on. Yeah.
And so I said, man, what if I could create a place for someone like my mom where she would be seen, known, loved, and where she'd be supported? So I said, I think it's within my gift mix maybe to help formulate a community. And so for me, I had grew up with this idea to create like these communities of faith. And so I started one in LA, and it just took off.
Yeah.
Like crazy. And we had, the average age was 28, and it became one of the fastest growing things that I had ever been a part of.
Yeah. And so it's funny, you kind of started with this realization that, hey, all this worldly stuff isn't going to bring you, satisfaction. But then you go start this thing and it becomes one of the fastest growing movements in America, right? Yeah. And then what happened, right? Did you kind of come back to your original conclusion there, or was it something different? Or
yeah, it was different in the sense that the way, like, my conclusion was like, keep it simple, focus on what's meaningful. But I think, again, in the mix of things, when you start to hustle, you just default into old methods, old ways, old language, old metrics. Yeah. And before I knew it, like, this thing was so big, and I was just keeping up, feeding the giant, like this monster that I created. Yeah. And in the mix of all that, what happened is, I know it sounds super odd, but I felt I heard a voice. Wow. And I don't want anybody to believe that, like, I hear this voice all the time. But it was a voice right when I stood on stage at Anaheim Convention Center when we were having this big, massive.
How many people?
There was like over 5,000 young people in that room. Yeah. And it's electric. And right before I came on stage, I had my Michael Jackson mic on.
Were you moonwalking?
yeah, I was walking out there. Okay. But right before I came on stage, I wasn't moonwalking. But as I came on stage, I heard this voice, "Is this it?" And it was my definition of success. And it just rocked me internally. I didn't say anything publicly about it, but I kept it. I finished the service and the experience, and it just kept coming back in my mind. And then as we were going on, again, I'm in the mix of the hustle. And we had this very practical happen where I was about to purchase this big piece of land for our community right off the 5 freeway in Southern California. It was like a prime piece of property. And then at the last second, the company that was going to sell it to us said, "I'm sorry, but we can't sell you this land." And I said, why not?
Mm-hmm.
They go, well, Kia Motor Company offered more money than you would.
Right.
And they offered $1 million more than whatever you would pay.
Right. Wow.
And I said, first of all, these are my own Korean brothers and sisters.
How could they?
How could they do this, man?
Right.
But then secondly, you know, I think I was a bit disappointed because I thought this was a noble, ambitious thing that who I serve is like, you know, God or Jesus. And I thought, you know, he'd be proud of that. So it seemed like odd that why wouldn't you?
Let me get the land.
Yeah, it's obvious I should be this like big hub, and you know, it could be something that people would want to come to because they see it visibly off the freeway, all this kind of things. But as I kind of was like spinning in that like discouragement of not getting this next step of the vision, expansion of the vision, I felt I again heard some things, and they're really questions to me. And I think it was important that it was questions because it seemed more like God. Like I felt sometimes, you know, we're expecting like an answer, but he wants to process with us. He wants to invite us into going deeper with him
and walking together. Yeah.
And then I felt he just said, you know, what would the church look like, this community of faith, if it's not about a building and not about a piece of land? And I had no idea what he was talking about because I always saw it as like, we have to have this hardware. And because that's
the historical model, right? That's what it's been.
Yeah, it's always about bigger buildings, and you got to have this flagship thing that people will all want to come to. It was like that mall type of feel of American malls. So the church took the same type of thing, you know, to be this big baddest thing in the community. Then he says, well, what if you don't have to do this type of way anymore? It's like creating that type of model. And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so that's when I went into my funk. And I went into a massive funk for the last 20 years.
Wow, 20 years.
Yeah, it's been 20 years. And I just been seeking like what that means.
Okay.
And then eventually what happened is I realized I had the right heart, I think, but I didn't have the right language, the right form, the right values and metrics. I think that fit what was being spoken to me in my heart. So that took a lot of unraveling. And that was very painful. You know, as I started to step into the mystery of where what I thought this may look like, that's where I found myself. And that's when I got clarity about like I feel like my calling per se while I'm here on this earth.
Can you tell us a bit more about that? I mean, 20 years is a long time, and so much to unpack there.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. It's hard because, you know, if you're a leader, especially, and you've had some proven success, people want you to be very defined and clear about the vision.
Yeah.
You know, it was so hard because I saw like a direction, but I didn't have all the hardware for it yet. I just had concepts, and no one told me that that's okay. Because usually, just give me like Moses, give me the commandment. Like, how are we supposed to live our lives?
Yeah.
But to be that person, so I don't know exactly. It was befuddling to not only me but to everybody that was around me. It's like, oh, he doesn't really know where he's going, and that's truth.
Yeah,
I didn't know, but I found out. Like, I developed this framework now that whenever you think you have an understanding of like the direction, you have to allow yourself a good amount of time just to experiment and to innovate.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think the last 20 years has been just trying to experiment, because when there's a movement and a season of deconstruction within a nation or within a culture, you have to reorient yourself to the new terrain, to what has happened. Because there's reasons why everything got deconstructed or things got torn down. And so just to like rebuild the exact same thing from before, it's not going to work. So I think it's a normal thing to kind of just look and define reality, and then what's the beautiful and the broken that you see there, and then what emerges from that. And I found it's like a new language, it's new values, new metrics, maybe even like institutions that even need to be created.
I think we're in a period of a lot of deconstruction on so many dimensions.
Massively.
Right? And so that sort of best practice of iterating and it reminds me of the lean startup, right? In our world and VC world, running lots of small experiments to see what works is it's certainly a best practice. But I think clearly even outside of that domain, a best practice spiritually, life development wise and so forth. So given that there's more and more kind of fast-paced exponential change in the world, I mean, it'd probably be fair to guess that you haven't figured out all the answers, right? But the last 20 years have given you some direction, some new insights and some framework and language and things like that. So any of that you could sort of share with us?
Yeah. One is like, I think so much of like the world and the Western world perspective is go make it happen, bro. It's a dog eat dog world. Take the initiative. And a lot of times that's unwise, especially if you don't know the terrain, you don't know the culture, you haven't really defined the reality. And so to me, I'd say it's better to be like an artist where you kind of immerse yourself into an environment and you just catch the vibe.
Yeah. What's
going on. You learn how to flow with the vibe because there's an organic rhythm usually of a person, of an environment. And so I said, instead of seeing yourself and feeling this anxiety, I have to go make it happen, initiate a movement, is be a learner and curious. You're asking questions, you're getting data.
Yeah.
And then you're responding to the data that you're getting.
Yeah.
So it's like a wave type of thing. You're seeing which one's better and you're feeling it. Oh, this is the wave.
Yeah.
And then you start to ride it.
Yeah.
And so it's more of a responsive type of life. And that fits with my religious tradition of faith, where there's a passage that I lean into that helps guide me. And it said, Jesus only did what he saw his Father doing. And I said, that's pretty crazy that even the Son of God would respond. He's not making it happen. He's actually very tenderly waiting to see what his Father's doing.
He's not inflicting his own vision and bro, go make it happen,
right.
sort of thing, right?
Right. Yeah. And I said that actually brought a sense of calm to me. Is that it's already happening.
Yeah.
And can you observe what's happening? And the deeper meaning of that, which I didn't understand literally till the last 5 years.
Wow.
It was about being fully present. And you hear that mentioned, especially in mental health.
Yes.
And you go, oh, yeah, I can be present.
Yep.
But to be honest, I don't think I really knew what that meant till lately. And because I'm so futurist, vision, and there's lots of compulsions and reasons why. I'm sure I think I became that way, but I don't think I could just sit and fully be there.
Yeah.
My mind's always racing about, dude, I wish this is over so I can go.
That's right, yeah. And a lot of leaders especially are like that, right? And this language I've heard you use a lot, which I love, is sort of, it's more like a dance, right? And so you don't just go and inflict your moves, right? You have to sort of like work together with whatever else is going on up there. And I love that. And another sort of concept that you talk a lot about, which resonates, which sort of fits into this theme, is flow, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I think we're both big Bruce Lee fans, right? And your favorite quotes is sort of flow, right? Like water, be water, my friend, this sort of thing.
Right.
And I guess out of that came one of your, I don't know, what do you call it, an exercise? This flow consult idea. So, the flow consult I had with you was just mind-blowing, and I want to share a little bit about them. Maybe you can sort of set it up with like telling us what that is all about and how it came to be and what's the sort of idea behind it.
Yeah. I launched a consultancy with some friends, one from Singapore and one from the US. And they were involved with some of the top consulting agencies in the world. And then one of the Singaporean board members of our group, he wrote a lot of the stuff for the major consultancy that everybody would know.
Yeah.
And so it was something that was really fascinating to me, and what we were doing was awesome. But then as we're doing stuff with leaders, executives, and founders, I said, there's something missing, man. And it's the spiritual side, not religious, but it's the meaning, purpose, transcendence, significance.
Yeah.
And I found that was missing. So I resigned from that. And I said, I need to figure that nut out. And that magic piece of it to me had to deal with the flow.
Yeah.
that there's this supernatural, transcendent flow that we all want to be part of that stream. And we'll sometimes feel it. There's magical moments when you see a basketball player like Steph Curry, just draining it like crazy, like during the Olympics, right? Or, you see the Celtics actually winning, a championship.
Hey, they're the most winningest team in all of history, okay? Come on, man. Those fighting words.
Maybe we should talk about the Boston baseball team, and they recently won. But but there's these magical moments of transcendence. And then, I saw that, how do you, I questioned, well, how do you get into that state? And I came upon that passage when I was reading the scriptures. I read John 5, where Jesus only did what he saw his Father doing. And I said, oh, he got into some type of flow. Like they were like dancing together. And so I started digging into that because everybody respects the scriptures. At least they see usually Jesus as a good man or as a prophet. So I said, I'm going to dive into Jesus because Christianity sometimes is all messed up and there's all these rules and regulations that we can have trouble with. But that guy, Jesus. So I studied, I go, he didn't seem frenetic. He actually seemed calm. And he really did great work. Like he loved the people, And so I said, and I saw his purpose, it seemed, was not to make himself popular. In fact, this past weekend was Palm Sunday. This is a side note. And, the palm leaf, that was Palm Sunday, right? And that was something that came from the Maccabean revolt. It was a sign of resistance and of freedom when they won. It was Judas Maccabees. And so, and then that era of time when Jesus came into Jerusalem, they said the festivals were actually moments of resistance for the Jewish community.
Oh, interesting.
It was almost like, like fist up, and they were resisting the Roman imperial oppression of the emperor. And then they wanted the Jewish people to bow down to the emperor.
But they didn't want to, right?
Yeah, because they saw him as a divine entity. And they actually would bow down on the ground and expose their necks, saying, "We'd rather you cut off our heads than to bow down to the emperor."
Wow. Okay.
So it was this intense resistance.
Right. I see.
In fact, they would be violent about it sometimes, and then sometimes they had peaceful protests by the thousands.
Okay.
But they were so firm in this, and then the Roman government was so angry about this. It was reported that thousands were killed and crucified.
Wow.
They said and one historian says that there was no land left to crucify these Jewish people who were resisting. So in that moment of resistance, when Jesus came into Jerusalem,
you're waving the palms.
You're waving the palms. It's like power. How does Jesus come?
On a donkey.
On a donkey.
Yeah.
Right. And again, kings would come in on these big gallant, noble white stallions, and then their entourage of the military might and prowess. But he comes in a dog, but it's not John. It's not only a donkey; it's a baby donkey.
Right.
It's not only a baby donkey; it's a borrowed baby donkey.
Right.
And I like how my friend said it. It's almost like Jesus photobombed this picture of power.
Right. Okay.
And so
he's got their Cadillac Maybach, and he strolls in on his plastic, tricycle or whatever.
It's like, come on.
Okay.
And something. How cool is that, though? And that showed me like the guy didn't care about the power as we knew it. Power is important, but he saw power from a serving perspective and from love. That love would always win.
Okay.
And so I saw this flowing, that there wasn't just like the adoption of what the culture was saying and of what was defined as power or greatness. But the flow really produced like this really meaningful life. So I said, man, I'm going to go after this flow thing. And so then I started studying some literature. And as I was speaking about things, a CEO, I think, of one of the big drug companies around the world, he was in Brazil when I was speaking. He came up to me after a talk and he says, "Hey, have you ever read the book called Flow?" And I said,
"There's a book called Flow?"
I go, "There's a book called Flow?" Yeah. I asked, I go, "Really?"
Right.
He goes,
it's like a really big book. Yeah.
He has I think Dohar or something like last name, something like that. And so I read it.
It's not Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi?
No. This was this was a different one.
Okay.
There's another one by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi
Yeah.
called Flow.
Okay, yeah.
But this was another one that
Okay.
about Doha. Oh, no, you were right. It's Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi was the Flow book.
Okay.
But the one he told me about was Spiritual Intelligence.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Like spiritual quotient.
Yeah,
It's
SQ.
like
And I had never even heard that language.
Okay.
And so then that dove me in, that took me then into the Flow book with
Right.
Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
I see.
So yeah, it was that series.
Hmm.
But then when I eventually got into the Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi after I went to the spiritual intelligence language, that kind of alerted me to this whole new code.
Hmm.
I started studying Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. I go, this guy did it. Like he found out what was happening with his family. I think post World War II, how they were all depressed, weren't happy.
Mm-hmm.
So he studied like how can we see them more happy, and then he realized, they need to like be in community.
Yeah, and he's not a spiritual or religious. He's like a hard-nosed psychologist. Just social scientist.
Social scientist.
Yeah. All data-driven experiments and things.
And it fits so perfectly. And he came up with this conclusion that flow is like being in the zone.
Yeah.
And then he defined it as when like your inner critic is turned off.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like fully present.
Mm-hmm.
I go, dang it, I don't know if I've been there that much. But I know when I have in those moments, it's like you're lost in time. And I go, dang, there's something about this flow thing.
Right.
And so then as I got into the spiritual component of it, I realized, what it's about, I think, is when you really can see someone and you can know them and be fully there and affirm their beauty.
Yeah.
And so I developed some assessments around how do you do that in a formal way, but then how can you also do it informally in your interactions every day?
Yeah.
And so from that, I've developed a whole like praxis around it.
Yeah. So maybe I can share. Is that all right with you if I share? I guess first I'll share. The first time I met, or didn't meet, but I saw Dave.
Right.
You were at my church in Korea just as a guest speaker. Big church, like 30,000 people. It's called Unity. And you're on stage at one of the English services with your friend and church member, I guess, who his family owns the biggest bank in Taiwan or something like that, and talking about how you guys are going to start a company together and investing all this. And I'm like, wow, this guy's so cool. Like he's kind of a pastor and spiritual, but he's like starting companies, and like, man, I'd love to meet him someday, but I'm in the audience and you're way up there. And you fast forward 20 years, it was like Clubhouse, right? Was the thing. So this audio social network, Clubhouse, Elaine, my wife, was on it very actively. And you guys, I guess, started modding rooms together, had a couple Zoom calls. And right around that time, my dad he got cancer. So I was starting to get down. As a young kid, I had been clinically depressed and, suicidal and things like that. But from then, I had a very, very sort of diligent mental health journey where I was generally very positive. But for the first time, I was starting to feel just a little down, like, not anything to write home about, but I was like, this is a little worrying. So I wonder if I should see somebody. So I asked Elaine, and she said, you got to go meet Dave. I was like, go talk to Dave. I'm like, wow, okay. So I ping you, right? And you're like, hey, well, usually I can do this flow consult thing. I'll just do it and whatever. And so I'm like, yes, please, let's do it. And there are a few things I guess I downloaded sort of my life to you in these few different ways. One of them's a lifeline exercise that we do in Young Presidents Organization often. So I'd done that before, and I think the thing that I was struggling with at the time was sort of my calling and a sense of purpose and meaning and all the stuff that comes around that. Because, I'll try and compress this. I got bullied as a kid. I was an outsider. So for 11, 12 years, I was just off wandering in the desert. And then after I I had a similar experience where I heard a voice. And again, it's not a common thing for me, but it said, I need to come home, get closer to my roots. And the reasons I felt I got bullied were my family, my faith, and my culture. And so I decided I was in a band at the time, quit the band, reconnect with my family, my faith, and my culture. But then at that point, professionally, I was doing all these different things and I couldn't really settle on anything. Right? I was a musician. I'd been an entrepreneur, a trader in derivatives. I was a Goldman doing commodities, so on and so forth, and set up this VC firm. And at this point, I was saying, like, why is it that I keep switching? I can't find my calling. Like, what is going on? And I was wondering if I should go do something else. Like, maybe I should go be a pastor. And I'd actually enrolled in seminary and all these things, right? And so you gave me a focus word, right? Do you remember what the focus word was? You don't remember? Yeah, because you do so many of these, right? But it was like so impactful and I'm sure all the millions of people you've done this for find it similarly. So, in fact, I know I've seen you do them for some of them, but like for me, the focus word was A-N-D. And the reason you gave me that word, he said, is like, John, a lot of times people end up, reliving their trauma, right? And so for you, it was like you're an outsider figuring out how to become an insider, and you figured it out, right? I did end up figuring out how to become accepted and all that stuff in a different culture than mine. But, when the world tells you, and there's a lot of sort of language out there about you got to do one thing, you got to do it really, really well. There's some truth to that, right? Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000-hour rule and so on and so forth. And it's not that that's wrong. There's some truth to that. But more importantly, you need to be true to yourself. And you need to do what's right in the way that you've been designed. And so for you, you're kind of designed to be at the intersection of things, right? And actually, Dave, you're my first guest on the podcast.
Wow.
But the first episode I did was just me talking about my mission.
Gotcha.
And it's about creating connection. And it was actually about, how I sit at the intersection of things. It's really insight that came from you, through you, let's say, from God through you, right?
Sure.
But it was like, you're designed to be at the intersection of things. Some people are, east or west, but you're designed to be at the intersection of east and west. Some people are creative or analytical, but you're designed to be creative and analytical. It's not either or, it's both and. And you said, I'll tell you, if you go do the new thing, let's say you go be a pastor, right? You're going to love it, because just like when you were the musician turned, entrepreneur turned musician, it's like, you love it because you're at the intersection of things, because that's John, the entrepreneur turned musician, and you're kind of like seeing the connection between things. But after a while, you do it, you're good at it, you're an insider. You're not on the outside anymore. You're not reliving your trauma anymore. You start to feel uncomfortable. Like, oh, is this really my call? It doesn't feel right. So then you go, I need to go to do something else, right? So then you go to go be a trader at a hedge fund, derivatives guy, right? And I say, oh, it's great for a while, but then it doesn't feel right after a while. And so the same thing's going to happen. Let's say you go be a full-time pastor. You're going to love it because everyone's going to say, oh, that's John, the musician, a venture capitalist turned pastor. But after a while, you'll be a good pastor and an insider, and it just won't feel right. So what you need to do is not change what you're doing, but change your perspective on things, right? And understand how you have been designed. What is your unique, original design? And it's to be at the intersection of things. And if you look at it, you're actually already doing it, right? So at this time, I had a vlog, right? And I was writing songs for my portfolio companies, and I had my kids in there, and but at the same time, I was in my spreadsheet, so I was at the intersection of being creative and analytical. You're at the intersection of faith and work, right? So I was preaching on Sundays, right, in my church as lay pastor, and engaged in various ways there, but I was also in the workplace and also praying for my CEOs, many of them atheists, and they're like craving for it. When I forget, they're like, hey, can you pray for me again, man? At the intersection of East and West, where I was in Singapore, but I was in the Bay Area once a month, so on and so forth. So he says, see, you're already doing it, but you just feel guilty about it, because what the world tells you is you got to do one thing, you got to do it well only. So you don't need to change what you're doing, you just need to change your perspective on it. And I was like crying, I was like, oh my goodness, I feel so seen and known, and like, oh wow, it all makes sense to me. So anyways, I just want to say thank you for that, for that clarity. And since then, obviously, there's just been so many more insights that have come. Yeah, and to your point earlier, do you remember what happened at Italy when you came for the Church Dao retreat? You went up. It was just like, I remember this only because I think this happens to you all the time, but I remember this because, and I've seen this many, many times, but so we have this sort of Church Dao, crypto, whatever community, right? That you've helped me to sort of get started. And we had a retreat, and a bunch of people were staying at my house, including yourself. And I went to Westfield Century City Mall in LA, and the Italy restaurant up on the rooftop. Yeah. We were just having lunch there. And literally we sat down, the waiter came over and said, how you guys doing today? And you just looked up at the guy, young guy, maybe in his late 20s, and you just said, you're a spiritual person and you think deep thoughts. And he just burst out crying. It was like, same thing. I feel so seen and heard and known. And I've seen you do that like so many times, but the group that we were with had never seen that. And they were so shocked. Christy, if you remember. Yeah. So to your point earlier, this can be a very formal, process, and it could take hours and so on, or it can just be like, you just say a word, right? And so you really embody that and carry that within you. And I think empower other people to do that, more importantly, right? So we're implementing that. I've done that for some of my portfolio company CEOs, and looking forward to bringing that in the rest of the things I'm involved in. Yeah. So thank you.
Oh, it's so naturally within you, man.
Oh.
It's so you, and you could be on a fast track and just acquire, build, be involved in all the hoopla, but who you really are is that type of person where you're really a loving man and caring friend, great husband, great father. And so, I tell people that part of it, to me, I realize is the magical quality of anything that we do. Because, work's work. It can get boring again, same old. What makes it magical are these type of spontaneous, wonderful, meaningful interactions with humans.
Absolutely. Brings so much meaning and purpose to it all.
Absolutely.
Right? Makes it all come together.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think we're running out of time. So just want to say thank you once again for being here. And I'm sure we'll have you back at some point if you don't mind.
Love to, man.
Yeah.
It's always great just being with you.
Awesome. Great to spend time. Thanks a lot, Dave.
You're
Take care.
welcome,
Cheers.
The John Kim Show. The John Kim Show. You better get ready for the John Kim Show. The John Kim Show. The John Kim Show. You better get ready for the...